Holy, 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 the whole earth is full of God's glory. This is part 5. The Legend of Zelda proves God is real. In this video, I'm going to only focus on Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask proves, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask proves that God is real. Each area of the game features some aspect of loss. In the game, you're forced to experience the Kubler-Ross model of grief. Go to Game Theory. They do an excellent breakdown of this fact. When someone is confronted with death, they go through 5 emotional phases: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. DABDA for short. My experience of my cross dying daily, I can testify that this is very real. In the game, you start off in Clock Town and the people there are in denial. Even though there's a giant moon that's about to crash into their region, no one cares. This demonic looking moon to me represent wormwood. I'll explain that later. The moon is expected to hit the town in 3 days, but no one seems to care. Clock Town is crazy like that. The people is playing around, planning parties, and just going about their business. The mayor and all the citizens are still planning carnivals and stuff. It's crazy. All these people are in denial. In the game, you look up and you see this giant moon that's about to crash. This is denial. All these people are in denial. This is stage 1 of the Kubler-Ross model. Then you're forced to go to Deku Palace, and over there, the princess has gone missing. So the Deku King is furious about it, raging against an innocent monkey. He thinks the monkey is the culprit and sentences him to death as his punishment. Sentences him to death as his punishment. He lashes out at everyone and at everything because he doesn't know what else to do. The second stage of grief, anger, is what is shown here. Next, you have to travel to Snowhead Temple where you meet a Goron, the ghost of Darmani, begging you to use your power to bring him back to life. This is the third stage, bargaining. He just died in the game, but you can't help him. When he realizes that you can't help, when he realizes that you can't help him, he gets depressed, saying, I may have died, but I cannot find rest. He was bargaining, and shows depression, which is one of the Kubler-Ross model of grief. Afterwards, when you arrive at Ikana Valley, this brings us to our last stage, acceptance. In Ikana, you meet Sharp the Elder, the brother of Flat the Younger, to find rest because he was trapped as a ghost or pole. This is acceptance because, as it is written, Colossians chapter 3, verse 3, ye are dead and your life is hid in Christ Jesus. You help him find acceptance, and also in Ikana, the Stone Tower Temple have you climb upwards towards the sky, obtaining the light arrows, which represent enlightenment. Jesus Christ is light. John chapter 8 verse 12. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. When you reach acceptance in Jesus Christ, you reach enlightenment. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 18. The eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that ye may know what is the hope of his calling, and what the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints. When I was falsely accused and banished from my very own apartment, this was the beginning of Dabda for me. God wanted me to be separate from the world so I can die daily, dead to the world and its ways. I was homeless for 2 months, living inside of my car. I was working at this warehouse, still homeless. I desperately wanted to be transferred to a different warehouse because I did not want to be reminded of the parking lots where I was forced to sleep in because of lack of gas, because of my homelessness. When I was homeless, the only thing that I had with me was the clothes on my back, but I decided to fight this battle with the Lord. I decided to not go home back to Virginia. I slept in hotel parking lots that was next to the warehouse. I slept in the parking lot of a library, which was across the street from my warehouse. I even slept and basically lived in my car at my job's parking lot. For 2 months, I was homeless. I finally got my own apartment, but working here at this job, I was always reminded of the places where I slept. When I drive through there, I was forced to see these areas where I had to shamefully live. I had to get out of it. I had to. Every time I saw those areas, I was in denial. The areas where I was homeless and sleeping outside, I was in denial, thinking that my managers would transfer me to another warehouse, but for some reason I was the only person that couldn't be transferred. It was like Satan was stopping me from moving because I needed this job. Everyone else was getting transferred to warehouses with ease, but I wasn't. I was stuck in this principality. And you better believe I had plenty of anger left over from being abused, falsely accused, and banished from my very own apartment. And me not being able to start my life over made me even angrier. I didn't want to lose this job. I was making a lot of money. If I lost the job, I would have nothing. I wouldn't be able to make money. But the cost of working there was tearing my heart apart. I kept bargaining with my supervisors. Oh, maybe I kept asking them, when are you guys transferring me? Transfer me. I bargained with my supervisors, with my managers, like, oh, maybe if I endure this work and keep doing a good job, one day I'll get transferred. I hated that job because my spirit was vexed because I was tested with adultery at that job. And that vexed my spirit. I really wanted to leave. And on top of that, I hated seeing the shame of my past, looking at these areas where I was homeless, where I was outside sleeping. So I got depressed because I hated I got depressed. I hated driving by these areas, seeing the shame that I endured over and over again, 5 days a week. I wanted to find rest from my past of suffering, but I had no choice but to drive through all these areas where I was homeless. Then lastly, I experienced acceptance. Even though I hated my job and I had problems with the coworkers that worked there, when I saw my guardian angel for the first time, I knew that no matter what grief and pain that I go through, Jesus Christ is with me. And I kid you not, the second guardian angel is like Navi from the Legend of Zelda with 4 wings. One of my guardian angels is a cherub. God knows the future. He knew I would make this video. When I saw the spiritual, it was time to go on a new journey with the Lord, so I quit. This was extremely risky because finding jobs was hard, but I just had to leave because it was causing too much pain to my heart. But I knew that God was with me when I saw my guardian angels for the first time, especially the blue one I call Navi. I experienced the Kubler model of grief because the Lord wanted me to understand that I have a cross to pick up and that I am reborn in Him. I am reborn and I have reached enlightenment in Christ Jesus because I know my calling now. I wasn't called to work at these warehouses. I have witnessed the many rewards waiting for me in heaven because I got the enlightenment now. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 18. The eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that ye may know what is the hope of his calling, and what the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints. Based on this whole Majora's Mask journey with God, experiencing the Kubler model of grief, confronting with death of this world, feels like you're trapped in time. I kept hoping the Lord would elevate me in the eyes of the world, but spiritually I was no longer of the world, so I was trapped. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, I was spiritually stuck in a nightmare. This was a journey that I thought I would never be in. Just like Zelda Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is a timeline when the hero is defeated. Link is dead throughout the whole game. As it is written, Philippians chapter 1 verse 21. For to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. When you die to the world, grief can make you feel like you're trapped in time and you can't move forward, paralyzing your life. Just like in Majora's Mask, you have to get everything done within 3 days. So with the Song of Time in the game, they make it so you actually can go back in time and complete your missions. In the game, they make it so you actually can't save the world in 3 days' time. So you use the Song of Time, and that enables you to go back to day 1 because you only have 3 days before the moon falls and destroys everything. In the beginning of the game, they show Link falling off a cliff. Then all of a sudden he opened his eyes like it's nothing. Link is dead in Majora's Mask. He saved the world in Ocarina of Time. Now all of a sudden after the fall, there's this giant moon that's about to crash into the earth. In the game, Link is in purgatory, the waiting room of the afterlife. The game represents his journey to accept his death and move on. In Termina, The people in the game are exact copies of Link's Ocarina of Time journey, because this is Link's personal purgatory. His journey to accept his death are populated with people he has encountered before, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. When I was homeless, I kid you not, I was still working at this warehouse without knowing that this was my personal journey of dying from the world, dying to the world. Now at Amazon, hundreds of people work there, so you can see a lot of people because it's a huge warehouse. I saw someone that looked like my grandma. I saw someone who looked like my mom, but she was white. I saw someone that looked like my sister. She looked Hispanic, I think. I saw someone that looked like my dad. You know, he was a mixed man. I saw someone who looked like my uncle. And I saw someone who looked like my ex, the woman who betrayed me. These people were spot on identical copies of the people that was in my life. This was my personal purgatory because I had a loving family. I lived with my family before I moved up here from Virginia. When I moved away from Virginia with my ex, that was afterwards becoming homeless. That was the beginning of my personal death. For as it is written, John chapter 15, verse 19, if ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Now let's talk about the mask. The transformation mask that Link has all represent characters who died. Darmani, the Goron ghost that appears to you, Zora's mask, the Zora mask, which contains the spirit of the guitarist that dies in front of you, and the Deku mask, the deceased child of the Deku butler. All of them has passed on. All of them are dead. To me, the mask represent the spirit of the prophets that live on in the hearts of the saints of God on this earth. We use the Bible and reflect on the prophets of the Bible who are no longer living to help us in difficult situations. When I was homeless and going through this journey, I thought about Job. How God allowed Satan to take all of his possessions away, but he endured staying loyal to God in the end. The water Zora represent Moses to me because even though, my situation was bad and looked fixed, God, he always provided a way for me to survive on my own, like Moses parting the sea with the Spirit of the Lord. The Bible is like a family thing. The men and women of God from the Bible touches the hearts of the saints because we are all children of God. Matthew chapter 12, verse 48. But he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand towards his disciples, and he said, behold my brother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. In Twilight Princess, Link is Shade, the spirit of Ocarina and Majora's Mask, because he died in the beginning of the game. Lastly, the moon to me represent wormwood. Revelation chapter 8, verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Now, if you are a Christian like me, you can't wait to be raptured and get up out of here. People keep saying all over the net, all over the internet, the rapture is coming, but we are still here. People keep saying we're in the last days. We're still here. They are correct. The rapture is coming, and we are in the last days. But as long as I'm here on this earth, it just feels like I'm not here spiritually on this earth anymore, because my heart is set in heaven. People say over the net Planet X is wormwood or Nibiru. On the news, they report, giant comets getting close to the earth, but never does damage. When you are dead and your life is hid in Christ, you know that this generation is doomed, and you see that everyone is in denial, living it up, being worldly. It's only through God's grace that we are still here in the first place. We must live every day like it's our last. When the rapture comes, and when you see that meteor, when you see wormwood, it's going to be too late. No one is going to see this thing coming. The rulers of darkness of this world is not going to report wormwood. They're not going to warn people. They want to keep people deceived. Wormwood is coming. Will you be in denial like the people in Clock Tower? Or will you be ready to leave before it comes? Because destruction comes immediately when Jesus returns and get his bride. Jesus died on the cross. The resurrection occurred after a full 72 hours. That's 3 days. We have to pick up our cross, and as it is written, I die daily. The 3 days that Link has in the game before destruction represent the Lord. As it is written, pick up the cross and follow him. And I am ready, but there was a process in my life. There was testing that needed to be done with my life in Jesus Christ. And I can testify that The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, proves that God is real.